Okay, we're back at it for some plein air painting. Heading to Wilson Lake. There's some houses I've been wanting to paint at this time of day. It's beautiful out today, and I'm going to take advantage of it. So, thanks for joining me, and let's get there. Okay, we're rolling up on the location here, and here's the lake. Very awesome, beautiful day, but I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with the houses. I'm thinking of some of these houses over here. I'm going to check out the angles. So I was here at 5:30 the other night. It's earlier, it's about close to 4, and we're going to see what's going on. That over there looks pretty cool. I might try that. Just the peaks of the houses. I don't know. We'll see. Yep. So I think I'm going to go for that scene that I saw over there and bring my kid over and get started. I just want to do a little quick study, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of talking. I'll do some voiceover in the studio, but pretty nice scene behind me. The house is over here. We're going to try to see what we can get into, and let me show you the palette. Again, the palette is going to be burnt sienna, yellow ochre, ivory black, titanium white, ultramarine blue, cad yellow light, and cad red. Now the goal here is going to be to try to keep the shadows, have a little air in them. Sometimes I make them too dark, and you got to be careful about that. So that's going to be the goal in this piece. I'm going to be doing it on an 8x10 tone panel gray with oil priming. So let's get started. So as I mentioned before, the goal in this piece is really going to be to have some air in those shadows. Very often we can, especially if we're working from photographs as artists, we can be, there's a tendency to make our shadows too dark. And because the camera is trying to find an average when we take pictures, unless you really get into bracketing with your shots, it can end up very dark. And I remember years ago when I did a little piece, and I still look at it now when I see the image on the computer that I have stored, that I just love the piece so much because the shadows are so light, but yet there's still such a feeling of sunlight, of strong sunlight. And I'm like, what did I do different there? And that's one of the things I notice now, is that the shadows were not just made extremely dark. Now let's talk about what I'm doing here. Of course, you've seen it quite often in some of my videos where I focus on structural elements like urban scenes and such. I really try to take my time at this stage with the drawing of the subject, and because that's really going to facilitate the painting coming out halfway decent right off the bat. And really just, of course, working as one tone to map it out. Like in this case, I'm just kind of really loving the Ivory Black at who knows what's going to be in 5 months. I try different things to expand my knowledge and see how it would feed into what I want to do as an artist. Something important to contemplate while you're painting. I feel that if you get lazy at this stage, you're really kind of setting yourself up for failure, and you're going to be kind of disappointed in the finished product. Now, one thing that can be tricky for some people, as you can see in the photo, I'm looking up at the subject, so receding lines are going back to a vanishing point that's lower, kind of probably about where you see in the photograph at the bottom of the photo, if I was to draw those out to my left and to the right from the panel. But I'm just holding up my brush and measuring an angle, and finding that really, over time, really facilitates getting the image down quickly. There might be some tiny spots you might have to mess with in terms of perspective, but it's a really good way to work. Very useful. And what I'm also doing at this point is I'm constantly looking up and looking down at my panel, looking up, looking down at my panel as I've measured those angles, and seeing, you'll notice when you do that quick sort of back and forth movement with your eyes, little discrepancies that you might have to touch up. And one thing I'm not getting too involved with necessarily is, I'm not putting every little detail in that I see in the scene. It's really about the houses. The tree, I'm not like trying to draw the tree exactly, but I get the gist of the tree and trying to get, because there's some limbs you may not want, some parts of the subject you may not want. It might be too awkward looking in real life, and when you try to paint it, it's definitely going to look odd. So those are things, just take some liberties. If it's an oak tree, they grow a certain way, so there's certain limits, but just be a little expressive. Be a little selective. As I've said in previous videos, you don't have to be married to the scene. You're the artist. You're finding out what your focal point is, what makes sense for you, your aesthetic, and that's what you need to focus on and bring out to show the viewer. To me, that's what makes the painting process enjoyable, is that you get to show the viewer what you saw in the subject. And someone else is going to see something different sometimes. It's just the way it is, and that's what makes art so enjoyable to look at. Okay, we're going to take a look at, see the progress of the painting. It's been about 20 minutes since I started using Ivory Black as a sketching medium. Works really well to nail everything right away. And I'm hoping to get some color in the next couple minutes, but let's take a look. So nothing extraordinary, but I got some shadow patterns mapped in. It's very loose, thin, and with the sun beating on it right now, that should dry fairly quickly. So you can see that the drawing from a distance looks pretty tight, but it's just some generic placement of shape. Well, I wouldn't call them generic, you're paying attention, but there's a simple placement of shapes, because you know you're going to be putting paint around like I am right now in the shadow of the house, and you might be altering those shapes a little bit. You'll just have to reestablish them later, so there's no sense getting into super detailed drawing. Sometimes if you do that up ahead, what you're going to run into is you start really being too careful around the shapes as you continue with the painting, thus making your painting a little too stiff. So that's something to consider. Well, we're coming along with the piece, and I think I'm just going to make this about getting some color notes right now, because I got to be getting home, and I think I'm going to spend about, I don't know, 20 more minutes or so just popping in some tones of the sky and everything, relationships, and then I can kind of finesse it more at home. So it's going to be more of a quick study. If you like what you're seeing so far, I invite you to subscribe. If you're new to the channel, watching for the first time, thank you. Now you'll notice here how I have the brush pretty loaded, and loading that paint on and chiseling around like the chimney shape to reveal the chimney. And that's a really useful technique to kind of bring out shapes. And the key is to really just put the paint on a little bit. I'm not going super heavy, but heavy enough to make a statement and move it around. And here with the sunlight, I just put in some yellow ochre to really kind of push some of the warmth and really pop that sunlight. And I think it added a nice effect, especially against the blue sky. Now, as you can see, I'm not worried about putting details of the siding in. On this scale of a piece, it'd be way too distracting and kind of close in the subject, and I just don't want that one to be more of statements of color. Getting there, slapping the sunlight in, using the little yellow ochre, and cutting around some of the shadows here. Working out pretty good. I'm still trying to decide what color tone I want to use for this shadow here. I don't want to make it too dark, like I mentioned before. And but I'm liking the statement. It's like almost enough. Let's continue on. Okay, I'm going to pack it in here. I've got a pretty damn good start. I'm pretty damn happy with it, and we're going to take a look at it and do a little close-up. But yeah, what a beautiful day. And this spot is going to be nice. There's a couple other scenes I want to paint eventually, and of course over there. Let's take a look. This was the scene behind me, and typically I don't like painting this sort of scene because it's too plain in a way, but some of that light over there is kind of nice. Maybe. We'll see. Wow, what an awesome time painting. Beautiful day, just beautiful. And I think it came out pretty well, some good bones. And when I get home, we'll talk a little more about it. So, see you there. So I just wanted to let everyone know also on the way home here that on my website, www.habowskistudio.com, I'll put a little thing there up in the screen. I'm now doing prints on my website, prints on demand, of certain select paintings. So go check it out, see what you think, let me know, and see you at the house. We're back at the house, and I just wanted to look at it away from the sunlight, because as I've mentioned before in other videos, you got to be careful painting in direct sunlight like I was the whole time. And like I've mentioned in other videos again, is I don't like using an umbrella, and it was very windy pretty windy enough at the lake that would have had issues if I had one set up. So just learning, if like you make your shadows too dark one time because you painted in direct sunlight and you get it home and your shadows that you thought were not dark enough are now black, you'll learn and you just adapt. But here's the painting. I think it came out kind of cool. There's going to be a lot of stuff to do still. That's pretty obvious, but pretty happy with it. Pretty happy with it. The sense of light and the composition I'm liking. And I'll study it a little more and see what's going on, but right now I'm liking it. So I want to thank you for checking out the video and taking a look. And if you were new watching for the first time, I invite you to subscribe and see more content in the future. Tons of stuff in this area where I'm living now in Wilton, Maine, and it's just a beautiful day. So I had to take advantage of it, and I'm hoping actually to get out tomorrow too. But thanks for joining me, and see you later. Bye.